effort and self-control. I'm going to begin with the cutest example, which is this marshmallow test. How many people have seen this? Quite a few. Okay, so I'll skip to the good parts. Okay, so that's yours. All right, here's the deal. Marshmallow for you. You can either wait, and I'll give you another one if you wait, or you can eat it now. When I come back, I'll give you another one, so then you'll have to. But stay in here and stay in the chair till I come back, okay? All right. All right, that's adorable. So that is a very cute illustration of how much effort self-control requires. And we have less self-control when we have less working memory capacity available. And we have less working memory capacity when we're children because we have not developed those systems just yet. When we are under high cognitive load, we have less working memory to allocate to type 2 thinking. Therefore, type 1 is more likely to drive our decisions. So circumstances like this are when you're stressed, when you're hungry, when you're working hard on a test. Those are going to be the times that type 1 decision making is really taking the lead and driving your decisions. This is when we see stereotyping happen the most, is when you have the least amount of energy or resources when you're tired. This is when people are stereotyping each other more. This is also when we make selfish decisions. If you're running late for class, that's going to be the time you're least likely to recycle because you don't have as much energy to remember the good things that you want to be doing in your life. This is also when you see a lack of inhibition. How many people have noticed when you're studying for a final, that's when you're eating the worst? When I teach, yeah, probably everyone. When I teach, I don't know why, I'll have like 2 or 3 coffees. I should have 1 coffee, but I have less resources because I'm thinking about teaching, and so I just go buy more coffee, right? It happens to everyone. This is a really interesting study where they showed that court rulings are related to this, where right before lunch, the positive court rulings were around 65%. And then as lunch approached, they dropped down to almost 0%. After lunch, they went back up to 65%. And when the judges were hungry and tired, that's when they were using their type 1 decision-making process and not ruling in favor of the people that were in front of them. So if you have a court appointment, you should hope it's not right before lunch. The moral of that story. This is also when we start to see this immediate gratification. When we are depleted with resources, this is when we're going to go to things that give us automatic bolts of gratification, like social media. That's when we have less of ability to stop ourselves from binge watching things or just constantly scrolling through information because we have less resources to stop that and do the thing that we actually need to be doing. When do we have less self-control? When working memory is taxed by being under time pressure, stress, lack of food, or doing hard tasks. How does this influence different groups of people? So there's some circumstances where there's large groups of people who are just overtaxed and they're under stress, like when you're commuting. When you're commuting, that's when you see people have the most selfish behavior out there because they're doing a really hard task. They're trying not to hit someone with their car or be hit, particularly here in California. This is also why fast food is located along the highway. If you don't have enough, if you're using all of your resources trying to be a safe driver and you see fast food pop up, then that's when your system 1's going to take over and say, oh, I need some more calories. I'm going to get fast food, even if you don't really want to. This is I think, a really important point that schools have noticed other groups of people who have less resources are children who show up for school that didn't have a sufficient breakfast. Many schools have started a breakfast program where they ensure that the students that arrive have access to the nutrition that they need, which will help them have all of the resources to be successful in class. This other one that I'd like to point out is anytime you are a minority in a majority group like this, you are also going to be under working memory demand, because it takes a lot of energy to try to fit in. It takes a lot of energy to try to match the social and group norms if you are from a minoritized group and you're trying to fit into a larger group. So you're constantly in the back of your mind trying to match the group dynamics. So you're always under cognitive load. In addition, there's many circumstances where people will experience microaggressions. So in addition to just constantly trying to remember or change actions or code switch to fit in, they're also going to be experiencing small microaggressions that they have to stop themselves from reacting in one way and try to manage that in the best way that they can. So that's a circumstance where people that are in minoritized groups are just under constant working memory load to even get through those circumstances. Okay. Type 2 thinking is lazy. Let's look at this bat and ball problem from the book. A bat and ball costs $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Everyone read the chapter, so you all know the right answer, I'm sure. But 50% of Ivy League students and 80% of students at other universities gave this answer, where they said the bat would cost $1 and the ball would cost 10 cents. Therefore, that satisfies a problem of the whole thing costing $1.10, which is not correct. If they said that the ball costs 10 cents, that would mean that the bat would need to cost $1.10 to be $1 more. And then the whole thing would add up to $1.20. So then that would be an incorrect answer. But 80% of college students come to that conclusion. The right answer is that the ball costs 5 cents, the bat costs $1.05, and the whole thing adds up to $1.10. The reason that we think that the majority of the people think that the ball costs 10 cents, the bat costs $1 is because it's an easy solution. It's easy and there's no reason to think more deeply about it. Why would you use extra energy trying to see if there is a tricky component to that question rather than just move on? So that's an example of how type 2 thinking is lazy. People will unconsciously try to avoid type 2 because it requires effort. If you don't have to think deeply about a problem, you won't, unless you're part of that minority of people who are constantly reevaluating situations to make sure that their type 1 processing isn't taking over.